This is FightFans Radio.
Let's get ready to rumble! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Down goes Frazier! Down goes
Frazier! It's time! You're listening to New Mexico's only mixed martial arts and boxing podcast, The Low Blow, on AtomCombatSports.com and FightFans Radio. It is another episode of Low Blow, episode 126 on SouthwestFight.com, USCombatSports.com, and FightFans Radio. I am Justin Goodrum, joined by Jorge Hernandez and Will McClary. What's up, guys?
What's up, man? Good evening, people.
What's going on, boppers? You guys, like I went old school on that. You guys ever watch that movie?
No, I don't understand that.
You never seen The Warriors? You've never seen The Warriors?
I have.
Yeah, man, Warriors, come out and play. I got you.
Thank you.
I understood that one, not the whole boppers thing. But
get out of here.
Today we're going to preview Bellator is happening as we speak, but we're going to give an overall preview of what we can expect out of Bellator and Spike TV. We're going to recap Strikeforce's demise. We're going to preview really a busy weekend in combat sports with HBO boxing and the UFC on FX, the new edition featuring Vitor Belfort and Michael Bisping. Things got heated at the press conference, so we'll talk all about that. You can get in touch with the show to email to lowblow505@gmail.com, also through our Twitter handle at @thelowblow, and also through Facebook to facebook.com/lowblowpodcast. But first, we have a special guest. He was one of our first interviews ever. I would have to say 2 years ago, myself and Jorge covered a local cage fighting event. It featured this fighter, Matt Hunt. He won. I think it was an amateur fight, if I'm not mistaken. We saw him really impressed. Right after the event, he was gracious enough to talk to us for a few minutes, and ever since then, I think we've been following his career. Now we have Matt Hunt on the show. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Jorge.
Yes, sir.
So, man, it's been, I looked at the pictures since we covered your event. It's 2010 since we covered that bout. So I want to ask you, since looking at that time, since that fight to now, how have you evolved as a fighter? Can you just take us through the process? You were talking to us off the air saying that you were kind of contemplating your fighting career at that point. Can you kind of take us through the journey back then to now?
I'd love to. And, first things first, I appreciate, the support that you guys have, shown me and the New Mexico boxing and MMA community has shown towards me, and being from Texas and everything. Well, first off, 2010 and on was, excuse me, a difficult year. I really didn't have a solid foundation or direction as far as where I wanted to go in the sport. At the time, I was training with Albuquerque kickboxing and with Lenny Lovato, and all of them shopped out to both of their schools, Lovato Total Fitness. And after that, I had fought under Tucker in the first Jackson series, before that, and so I was 1-1 as an amateur. And then I had one more amateur fight out here in Texas. And so after that, I decided to turn pro, but only I didn't really have the support that I had in New Mexico when I moved back out here. And I ended up taking a fight at 155. That was my pro debut, and it really wasn't a smart fight. But again, I was really misinformed, and I didn't have a gym that I could call home, or anywhere that was, close to me in the DFW. So I trained out of my high school, man, and tried to retain everything I learned, from out there. And I lost, actually, via submission. And, from then on, I knew I had to take it more seriously, man. And it just wasn't a good fit for me at 155. That guy was actually 160. And I came in at 152. Wow. It's probably still on YouTube. But yeah, it was just, that kind of took me through the ringer. I didn't know about the management game and things like that. And so shortly after that, I fought on Evolution Combat Sports. And, you know, Bellator, I received another loss. So I was about at 1-2, you know, in 2011. And after that, man, I just really wanted to go ahead and work on everything and evolving as a fighter and not just wrestling. So, you know, it was really something that was getting to me, man. And I gotta admit, you know, it was something that was, you know, I took very seriously again after that, man. I didn't know what to do. And, you know, shortly after that, I met with Johnny Bedford and, Moeller's Mixed Martial Arts out here. They, currently have Edwin Figueroa, who's going to fight in 156. And they have Will Campuzano and Jason Sampson and a couple other tough guys out here. I got with them, man, and really turned, my game around and just basically brushed up on everything that I felt like, you know, I had to work on, you know, as an up-and-coming fighter. And I wanted to take all my fights, with, you know, serious intention. And honestly, man, I still to this day haven't had a fight camp, that has been over 1 month. So I'm still, you know, on the hunt, man, to set everything up here. But, for 2012, I went 3-0 with all finishes, man. And, I guess, you know, I really put some time in and, you know, hopefully God can bless me, you know, with a sharp 2013, man. But, you know, it's been a journey, and, you know, I appreciate interviews and all the coverage and media that I can receive as a fighter, you know, on the way up. And, you know, it's been fun. And I'm going to continue to improve, man. I know that I can, you know, be in that elite class, man. And I started out in New Mexico. You know, all of us out there are tough fighters, man. So I want to go ahead and represent for all my friends and, you know, my gyms and everybody that put their support into me, man, you know?
Yeah. You brought up a fighter by the name of Hunter Tucker. He's from the same area of Texas that you actually are. And he's actually, you know, he's one of the better young fighters at Jackson's. As a matter of fact, Sherdog had him as one of the prospects to watch. So, you know, seeing that he was a former, you know, opponent and then seeing the success he has, does that motivate you a lot, especially since you went the distance with him? It's rare that anyone goes the distance with that guy.
Wow. You know what? You know, I appreciate you guys for looking into that. Shout out to Hunter Tucker, man. I know you're going to go wreck, you know. But, yeah, that definitely lit a fire under my butt, man. And, you know, I just want to go ahead and compete to the potential that I have. And, you know, like you guys said, I'm the last person to actually go all 3 rounds with Hunter. And, you know, I guess that should show a little bit about my potential. That was also my first amateur fight ever, by the way. And I kind of, you know, I didn't know how things went, so I kind of like really didn't say my true record while I was going there. I didn't want to come out there bare naked, and then, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. You know, that was my first fight, but I said, you know, this is elite. This is an elite card, and this is pro rules. And I said, you know, to myself, well, I guess if you want to turn pro, man, you might as well go ahead and you know, get in there with the big dogs. And you know, definitely, I'm not saying that I wasn't prepared for that fight, because I did train very hard. And you know, we always have to evolve as fighters. But, you know, taking nothing away from Hunter, man, because that was still my toughest fight to this day. I really, you know, learned something about the game that day. And, you know, from then on, man, I've been peeping Hunter, and all of his, you know, success since then. You know, I'm trying to catch up, man. So, you know, we've got the same amount of wins right now. You know, I just took a different path. But, you know, one day we'll probably meet again, you know what I mean? It's inevitable once you reach this level. But, you know, I'll continue training, man, and, you know, keep on, you know, learning, man.
Mm-hmm. Like you said before, you went 3-0 in 2012. Can you kind of compare, you know, fighting fights in the Texas fight scene compared to the New Mexico fight scene? kind of, in Albuquerque, you pretty much have the hub, Jackson's MMA, a couple of other shows, and you have some shows kind of in the outskirts of New Mexico. Texas, it's a big old state. How is the fight scene over there? Is it easy to get fights, more difficult?
Well, shoot, you're going to put me in a tough spot here, man. No, I'm going to say, it's 50-50, but what I'll say, in Texas, you'll see a lot more variety as far as the level of competition with fighters in the pro scene. In Mexico, it's not really a choice, man. You either bang, and stand up, man, for yourself, and when you turn pro, you got to go ahead and adapt. Out here, I definitely say because there is a bigger, range of competition, you can work on you have a little bit more time to work on yourself as a fighter, instead of necessarily stepping up to those big shows, and things like that. But, as far, there's tough fighters everywhere, man. And, I see a lot of good camps out here. Like I say, Moeller's, MMA is, probably the elite in the DFW, and there's also Team Takedown. They have Johnny Hendricks out here, a couple of tough guys. So, with that being said, man, yeah, it's just the competition is select out here, but in New Mexico, man, you have no choice, man. And that's why I feel like, a lot of my fights over there have been tough because they all have that warrior spirit. It's a smaller MMA community, but it's ironic because they are the mecca of MMA right here, especially in the United States. And, they're on the map, as far as pumping out world-class athletes and champions right now. So
now I just wanted to bring something up. If anyone has ever seen you fight, or if they haven't, I should say, they should look up one particular video that lasts about 8 seconds when you defeated Sterling Lenz, man. That's one of the sickest knockouts I think I've ever seen. How did you feel after that? Because you were talking about how you had to bounce back. That was your bounce back fight after going 1-2, and you literally knocked the guy out in 8 seconds.
Yes, and I'm not boasting. I'm a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. Shouts out to my uncle, Dennis Panoric, Ken's Taekwondo. But I've been doing that kick since I was like 5, and I think that it was just right there. In the fight, you can see he probably thought I was going to throw a punch, and I don't think that he thought my leg was going to reach the ground to his chin in that amount of time. And I'm just going to let you know, I really think it was around 6.32 seconds because I have the original footage. I heard the bell, and I've seen the minutes and counting there. The seconds from when the bell rang and he said fight to where we touched gloves and put his hands up. It was a very brief moment, but after that, man, I just remember I was still hungry, and a lot of people were mad after that, man. Like, I had to get like a police escort and stuff because it excited a lot of people on both sides, man, and I fight of the night, but after that, man, I had to give it up to God, man, and then I just went on a warpath, man, and I had another knockout in a sub recently, so hopefully 2013 will bring a little more, man.
Now, Matt, I think if people go on YouTube, they can also see your work as an interviewer. I'm doing some work for Legacy Fighting Championships. How did that come about, and do you see yourself, maybe when your fighting career is over, or maybe as you're doing it now, doing, more interviewing with other fighters and some other video work pertaining to the sport?
Well, ironically, man, I always thought that, I'd like to do something in the MMA industry, and I always looked up to you guys, man. Low Blow, dude, and I've seen all the work that you guys have put into it and what's come out of it, man, and I'm really thoroughly impressed. And I just want to follow in the footsteps, man. I want to catch up, and if that's something that I can, work with after my fighting career, I'd definitely take the opportunity. But, you know, like I say, man, I'm looking up to you guys, Justin and everybody else that's a part of the show. And I see what you guys have done and what you've created, man. And like, I want to go ahead and do the same thing. And probably, at this time, I'm going to continue doing a couple of interviews, here and there. And, when I have the opportunity, I want to go ahead and brush up on my skills. You know, you guys have a few years on me. So.
You're not doing too bad, though, man.
Well, thanks a lot, man. You're stellar.
Yeah, dude, thank you very much for saying that, Matt. We're just very humbled to hear that. And I think you have a pretty wealth of knowledge since you are a fighter. You have plenty of experience. You've been on both sides of the table. I think you have a lot to really present to an audience that usually just hears about from people just like us who have never even put on a pair of MMA gloves before. You actually have fighting experience. So I think you'd be a pretty good asset to the MMA journalism community.
Wow, thanks a lot, sir. I appreciate that, man.
No problem, but I think we're going to let you go, man. You have a Twitter page, Facebook, anything you want to plug?
Yes, last thing I was just going to say, I have a website, www.warunited.com. That's warunited.com. Shouts out to my boy Donnie Bell, who is actually the 155 XKO lightweight champion out here. He's 6-2 as a pro, 5 finishes. All right, he fought 3 fights in 3 weeks with 3 first-round finishes. Okay, so that's on some John Bones Jones right there. You know, I'm just going to put that out there. Yeah, everybody, you might as well be scared right now. Okay, and my Twitter is mhunt145. Instagram is mattyh145, and shouts out to my gym, Molars, Lenny Lovato, Low Blow, Jackson's, man, and everybody else who's a part of, this phenomenon here, man. So thanks, I'm blessed, and you guys take it easy out there.
Take care, man. Look forward to hearing from you soon.
Of course. Take it easy.
You too. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot, Justin. George, I'm signing off, man.
Later.
Right on.
All right, man.
That was Matt Hunt. Really, an awesome interview, man. What did you think of that, Jorge? Look at what this guy has done. Yeah, that's crazy. Pretty good.
I mean, you got to hear like just the honesty that basically of a fighter who struggled, who may have hit a new level here. Just it's his second win of his career, if you will. So it was great to hear from him.
Yeah. Totally. Let's get to it. It's a standing 5 count this week, usually standing 8 count if we had the time, but we had a guest. So we're making it kind of a condensed version this week. Standing 5 count is the top 5 stories and mixed martial arts and boxing, and really a story that kind of caught everybody off guard. And luckily, for Ronda Rousey's sake, the Manti Te'o story, the Lance Armstrong story has kind of overshadowed this, and she's actually got a free pass on this. A couple of days ago, Ronda Rousey tweeted an interesting video claiming that the Sandy Hook shootings were a government conspiracy. She tweeted, the tweet said, interesting video, and it pertained to the Sandy Hook shootings being a government conspiracy. She since then apologized. Here's a statement from her manager, Darren Harvey. This is from him, via MMAJunkie.com. Quote, Ron is the kind of person that doesn't take anything at face value and doesn't have 100% faith in all news that's put out there by the mainstream press, unquote. And then from Ronda Rousey herself, I never meant to insult or hurt anyone. Sorry if anyone was offended. It was not my intention in the least. And that was from Ronda Rousey, I think a couple of days ago. So very bizarre story. And I think the damage control, I think that was an epic fail by her manager. So I just hope, she finds new representation in terms of a PR agent, because if that's the best she's going to get, then she's in trouble. But, Will, you have some news about Andre Ward's surgery being a success.
Yes, good thing that Andre Ward, he had a shoulder surgery. Right when I saw this, it reminded me of Mayweather when he was having trouble with his hands. We haven't seen Ward since his dominant performance against Chad Dawson back in September of 2012. But Ward is definitely going to be back in the ring soon, the 28-year-old. His surgery, as I said, is successful, and he's looking forward to get back in the ring But it's been some time, so I wonder if people are still electrified from that last fight that he had against Dawson. So I hope that he heals up good because, definitely pound for pound, he's definitely still on my list. But I would like to see Ward fight more often, but he has to make sure that he heals up properly. We've been discussing about injuries. I would hate to see this guy get a great fight and then have to cancel again because he didn't take the extra time to make sure that his shoulder is fully recovered. But nevertheless, look forward to seeing him in the ring soon.
Yeah, and also UFC Tonight revealed some names that are the former Strikeforce fighters now that are heading over to the UFC. Light heavyweight, this guy was one of my favorites for a while. Gegard Mousasi. A couple of middleweights who stand out. Luke Rockhold, obviously. Jacare, who had a pretty good Kimura victory this weekend. Nate Marquardt. I mean, some of these guys aren't surprises. Gilbert Melendez, obviously, already getting the title shot. Will's boy, KJ Noons, you're going to see him in the UFC, man. So just a few of the names that are headed over. And, of course, here, an announcement that was made actually this week. Local fighter Isaac Valley Flag, who's been living in New Mexico for like 15 years. This guy's pretty much New Mexican blood now. He's actually fighting Yves Edwards in a pretty big fight for him. So
wow, that's awesome news. Yves Edwards, I've always respected him, and I've seen Isaac fight a couple of times. That should be a great matchup.
I mean, dude's got like 60 fights, so this is a good fight for Isaac, I think, especially in his first fight with the UFC. I mean, he had some pretty big victories last year, so definitely good for Isaac Valley Flag.
No doubt. Juan Manuel Marquez looks like he's not going to retire. Looks like the 39-year-old still has some fight left in him. Will compete in April. It seems like the opponents are either Jessie Vargas and golly, this name's going to be brutal. I'm going to butcher it. Vanshilev Shevchenko. Those are the sources. With Vargas being the leading candidate. I don't know. I think I butchered that, but he doesn't give me too much credit. But thank you for making me feel better. But Vargas is 23 years old, 21-0, 9 knockouts. This might be a weird question, but wasn't there a Jessie Vargas on the Contender? That's a different one, right?
Different Jessie Vargas. But this guy, he used to be Floyd Mayweather's guy, Jessie Vargas, and after the whole money team fiasco, this guy became a free agent. He's a decent fighter, but I mean, Juan Manuel Marquez shouldn't have too much trouble with him, to be honest.
So this seems to be a strategy in April to have a doubleheader card with Manny Pacquiao on the same card too. They both win, they do another fight. Is that the strategy?
I mean, that's something that I just barely heard about. There hasn't been too much noise about that. I find it interesting that they would do something like that. I mean, if they're looking to sell pay-per-view numbers, and that's the only way they're going to do it, because if Juan Manuel Marquez fights Jessie Vargas on a pay-per-view, those numbers are going to be atrocious.
Mm-hmm. So, Will, you have some quick news about the Strikeforce event. I know you were paying especially attention to those fights, and the drug test results came back a couple of days ago.
Absolutely. Everybody's clean. Lately what we've been having, I mean, it's been, it's just good to hear for the sport. We got entertaining fights, and it's great to see that nobody was trying to cheat. And I was impressed the way that Strikeforce went out, man. But, my favorite is... I know Jorge was mentioning KJ Noon's he's gonna transfer to the UFC, but I text you after the fight, man. I really want to see Jacare in the UFC. I think he's a tremendously talented, and like I said, he's always entertaining. So I'm really glad that he wasn't cheating either.
You're a big fan of his, and we'll talk about that as we're going to recap Strikeforce in a big way a little bit later. But right now, we're going to go 3 rounds. That is where pretty much myself, Will, and Jorge keep it real for about 60 seconds and put out to the world what's on our mind, what's either got us, angry or maybe got us a little bit pumped up about the combat sports world. So who wants to kick it off this week?
I can go first and just piggyback off of the drug test results that, Strikeforce, as Will reported, that Strikeforce fighters were actually clean. This week, a fighter by the name of Leo Santa Cruz, who is one of my favorite fighters, one of the most exciting fighters, he actually was the fighter people might remember recently who was in the main event of the CBS rebirth of boxing. He actually tweeted at Nonito Donaire, "Hey, Nonito, can you tell me more about this testing that you're doing?" So apparently he's going to sign up for it as well.
So all it took was one guy to inspire all these other champions to do it. So again, we've talked about it before, but I applaud Nonito Donaire. Right now, he might be pound for pound number one, him and Floyd Mayweather in boxing. And for him to be taking these random drug tests, Olympic style with VADA, it's incredible, and it's good to see that other young fighters like Leo Santa Cruz are jumping on the bandwagon.
I want to piggyback off of that real quick, Jorge, because I was thinking about this last week. I commend Donaire as well, and I think that's some of the differences between him and Mayweather. Because you remember when Mayweather, he came out big time about these performance-enhancing drugs and, begging the commission, or some people say trying to force the commission to do something about it. Donaire is still willing to fight these guys regardless if they're cheating or not, but I think that's the difference. But yeah, this has been going on for a while, so I got to give Floyd his props too, because even though early on I think that most people were really irritated, I guess it's the way his approach was, but it's something that definitely has to be resolved. So I think that, of course, Mayweather and Donaire should be recognized for their efforts and their consistency to be clean in this business that's apparently full of cheaters. But that's not essentially my main beef, and so I'll get right into it. It's Bernard Hopkins still fighting at the age of 48, and to insult to injury, he's fighting Tavares Cloud. The last time I saw Cloud, I was disappointed that basically he robbed Gabriel Capillo. He definitely lost that. He definitely lost that fight. I thought he was like an up and comer for a light heavyweight. But again, you're going to bounce back against a 48-year-old Bernard Hopkins. I mean, this is just really turning into a circus show. Bernard Hopkins, with his last fight against Chad Dawson, he wasn't able to be successful. It was a boring fight, and I think that he's getting into that stage where he's starting to tarnish his legacy if he continues to take these type of fights. Now, he's proved us wrong many times before. But me personally, I'm sick of seeing him in the ring about now. So I'm not looking forward to that fight. Doesn't excite me at all. But you never know. We might get something, but I doubt it'd be fireworks.
And speaking very quickly, speaking of Campillo, he was robbed of that fight. He's actually fighting this weekend. I didn't even notice that, but he's fighting an undefeated guy, Sergey Kovalev. I'm not even sure if they're showing it on TV, but the dude's 19-0 with 17 knockouts. Hopefully Campillo can pull that off, man, just to redeem himself. I mean, not necessarily even redeem himself. He got robbed the last time he fought Tavares Cloud. So
straight up.
I think I'm calling it right now. I think Bernard Hopkins will probably fight when he's 50. I think the big 5-0. I think once he hits that, he'll have one more fight and he'll call it quits. I think he might go till then. But my topic I'm burning on is this with Bellator. I've been kind of critical with the organization just in terms of they need big money free agents to kind of be a player in the MMA space. But then I kind of thought about it, and I was watching SportsCenter today, and I saw the MLS draft going on. And I was like, MLS doesn't have any of the top players in soccer. I'm a casual soccer fan. I've gotten into it the last couple of years. And with MLS, David Beckham, man, anybody can tell he's past his prime. Thierry Henry, I mean, another really washed-up player from the English Premier League. A lot of these guys, they were stars at one time, but not really that good anymore. And MLS has been getting popularity on ESPN. They don't get epic ratings, but they get good, solid ratings. You take a look at the Portland Timbers game. I think it was you, Jorge, that went to one of those, jam-packed in the Seattle Stadium. Those fans super enthusiastic. Portland, those fans enthusiastic about seeing MLS. So I think Bellator, I think they have problems, certainly, and I'll still point out the flaws that they have. At the same time, if they don't get Quentin Jackson, if they don't get Josh Barnett, I don't think it's the end of the world. I just think, as long as they're able to keep most of their free agents and develop guys, I think they'll be okay. Now, are they going to be a competitor to USC? No way at all. But I think I've come down on in terms of them, they absolutely have to re-sign Eddie Alvarez, or they have to absolutely sign Barnett or Quentin Jackson. I think as long as they keep putting out good prospects that, put out good prospects that I think any MMA fan can see they're a legit, decent MMA fighter, I think people are going to be pretty happy with the product. So I wish Bellator the best, and I think we're going to talk about them later on. But I thought I'd get that off my chest. Jorge, you went to the ESPN Friday Night Fights in Santa Fe, New Mexico this past Friday. you're unable to do updates because the Wi-Fi was down in the building. Can you just give us a sense of how the event was? Was there any buzz because, the event was on national television? Give us your thoughts on the event.
There was a buzz, and the loudest cheer actually came when Santa Fe fighter Brandon Holmes, who only had 8 amateur fights, but his family is very, very well known there in the Santa Fe fight scene. He actually came out and opened the show for ESPN. So amazing that a New Mexico fighter made his amateur debut on national television. So they only showed 3 fights. It was Brandon Holmes' against Abelardo Esparza, another debuter. But very electric crowd even early on for Brandon Holmes. There were, I think the paper announced that there were about 1,400 people there. So, I mean, it was a decent-sized show. The gym, it was a high school gym, but it was a little nicer because the actual seats wrapped around the stadium as opposed to, how you're used to having just the sidelines. So it was pretty cool to have seating all around the gymnasium there. We also saw Brandon Gonzalez, who's a pretty good prospect out of Sacramento. And, Will, you're going to be upset. He's being trained by Virgil Hunter. Virgil Hunter was in the house, man. So,
man.
Good looking. And, of course, Virgil Hunter, Andre Ward's trainer and Amir Khan's trainer now. So he had a tough contest with Don Mouton. But, of course, the fight of the night, the main event of the night, the main event that evening was John Molina Jr. looking to bounce back off of his 45-second KO loss to Antonio DeMarco recently. He had a huge knockout over Danny Williams. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but
I did, man. Hey, Jorge, how did my man Williams end up on the other side of the ropes?
I have no idea, man. He got faked out because Molina was only throwing a single lazy left jab, and when he doubled it up, Williams didn't expect that over the top right to come, so it happened right near the ropes. And I don't know, Williams thought he was the corner man or something, man. He was on that opposite side being counted out. I think he wanted the referee Rocky Burke to tag him in. In old school wrestling where you're sticking out your arms. And
that's the hot tag, man.
Yeah.
Hey, he did, man. I was wondering too, man. I know he got caught with a good punch, but do you think he could have continued?
I don't know. He had a blank stare in his eyes and couldn't really respond to the referee. The referee was counting right in his face, and he didn't say anything. He just kept staring at him. The way he stood up, it looked like he could continue, but mentally, I don't think he was there. He just wasn't responding to the referee, so it was pretty interesting. But Danny Williams was winning that fight 3 rounds to 0 easily, man. And then John Molina his trainer Robert Garcia, world famous Robert Garcia, yelled at him right after the 3rd round and told him to put the pressure, and ultimately he did, knocked him out, man.
Mm-hmm. You have a couple of interviews on our YouTube page as youtube.com/lowblow505. Real quickly, who are you talking to? I think you have Archie Ray on there. Who else do you have on there?
Archie Ray Marcus, local guy. He's actually going to fight. News on Archie Ray. He's actually fighting in Finland in March. He's fighting an undefeated fighter, so it should be good for him. The guy's 19-0 that he's fighting, but he only has 5 knockouts, so it's a great fight for Archie Ray to bounce back to the national scene. So I got an interview with him. Brandon Gonzalez, again, the top Sacramento prospect. John Molina Jr., of course, the victor in the fight. We talk about his last loss and what this win means, and also Robert Garcia, who's one of my favorite boxing personalities, and glad I met. He's definitely one of the people that I was hoping to meet sometime soon, and I had the opportunity to interview him. So pretty awesome. And he's actually, we'll get into this later, but Robert Garcia is training his brother, Mikey Garcia, this weekend, so he quickly talks about that, but it's not too in depth, so don't get too happy on that interview.
Let's talk about Strikeforce. As one organization rises with Bellator happening right now as we speak, another one died this past week in Strikeforce. A long lineage of history, from this karate bouts to kickboxing to mixed martial arts. It saw its end this weekend. I've heard some MMA pundits say that this event was garbage, that there are a lot of mismatches, but I think you guys disagree. I want to kind of get to a couple of fights on this card. One being KJ Noon's Ryan Couture. The video I saw this was kind of choppy, so I didn't get a really good sense as to if KJ Noon was truly screwed or not. You guys saw the fight. Can you give me your synopsis of was KJ Noon really robbed, number one? And also, do you think both of them deserve to be in the UFC? As Jorge said, they're both making a transition. Do you think they both deserve a shot at the lightweight division? I mean, it's not 2007 anymore where you have, Hermes Franca and Sean Shirk and, Kenny Florian being the top guys. You have some serious contenders in lightweight. Do these guys deserve even a bottom slot at the UFC?
That's one of the fights I actually did miss and I haven't gone back to see.
Okay.
This is all you two.
Oh, it'll actually be all you, man, because I'm that's the one that I missed too. And KJ is my man too. But I was gonna ask too, like, do you think it's just like, just like for, is it for Couture? Is it just basically, his father's name that's getting him in the UFC?
Yeah, I think so. Ryan Couture is a pretty decent fighter, and I think as the UFC is expanding, you always need talent. So, I mean, he's a name, and I think it couldn't hurt to have him in there. Same thing with KJ Noons. They both have some credibility. There's some interest there. I mean, it's better than just bringing in some guy, some local talent who no one knows about that has a mediocre record. At least these guys have a name. I think, if someone of an upcoming lightweight does beat them, I think it might be made a bigger deal than it actually is. But I feel kind of indifferent about it. From what I saw, I think KJ Noons won the fight. The scores were 29-28, 27-30, and 29-28. But I'm not really too upset about that. But I think a lot of the card was filled with a bunch of mismatches, a lot of quick submissions. Pretty much in the main card, we saw your boy Will Jacare Souza pretty much handle Ed Herman. As a full stand-up, by the way. I like Jacare. I think he's going to make a lot of waves in the UFC. I hope it doesn't go to the ways of Rusumar Plahares. I think that might be his future. That concerns me, and just being kind of a one-trick pony. But I think if he can round out his game, I think Jacare can be dangerous. In terms of the rest of the Strikeforce roster, making their transition to the UFC, I know we saw Tarek Safadine defeat former Jackson fighter named Mark Quarry via unanimous decision by kicking that lead leg. Safadine wasn't guaranteed a spot in the UFC, but because of that victory and because of becoming the last welterweight champion in Strikeforce history, he earned a spot in the big show. So overall, just real quickly, who are you guys excited to see the most make their way into the UFC?
I think there's no argument, for me at least, it's Daniel Cormier, just because of what he's able to do, of who he trains with. He's in there with those top elite guys at the UFC level every single day in the gym. So for me, it's definitely him, to see how he's able to handle, I guess the juggernauts in the UFC. I think he's going to perform fairly well. I love his hands. He just knows where to put those over the top shots, despite being the undersized man in every single one of his fights.
Yeah, I think Daniel's going to do good too, but you already know, what I'm saying, mine is going to be Jacare. I'm interested in seeing what this guy can do, because I enjoy the versatility. It's no secret that I prefer the stand-up, but even, he got it by submission. And then I thought it was interesting too, and, boxing, of course, protect yourselves at all time. When you're fouled, you don't stop. That's the only thing I was kind of like shocked in Jacare, when he just stopped fighting to look to the ref and left himself wide open. Now, he could have really got blazed by that, but fortunately he didn't. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it was kind of weird, especially because from my vantage point, maybe I'm wrong, it kind of seemed like that up kick hit him in the chest. And also, Ed Herman committed to foul, and yet he was rewarded by the fight being stood up, and Jacare lost that position. So I just thought that was kind of weird. But overall, I'm impressed with Jacare. Maybe he'll inspire you to get your jiu-jitsu black belt. Well, you'll be rolling in a gi in no time, man.
I'm gonna do that alligator crawl on you, man.
Hey guys, just very quickly. I know it's over, but a moment of silence for the organization that was Strikeforce.
He brings up.
Yeah, all right. That was it.
Agreed, man. Hopefully Scott Coker can find a job. We'll see. I know Reed Harris, he was pretty much associated with the WEC. He's now working in the UFC. So I think Scott Coker, he's a very talented businessman, very talented promoter, very savvy. We'll see what he does in the UFC. Just real quickly with Bellator, I don't want to spend too much time on this because Bellator is happening right now. But just overall, in terms of them being on Spike TV, do you see, because from what I've heard of interviews, the head honchos of Spike TV really think that this can become the kind of the new UFC. People will get hooked into Bellator the same way they got hooked into the UFC. Is that possible? Let's say the fights are all awesome. This product's happening every week. for a while now. Let's say, they have a record, 9 straight weeks, awesome fights. Do you really see the same growth, that could happen in Bellator as it did happen to UFC? Is that possible at all?
I don't think so. It's going to be, I don't even think it'll be nearly, well, I should say nearly. It might be on par or just a little less than the momentum that the WEC had before it was actually, swallowed up by the UFC. They're on a good day. It's not a Friday, thank goodness. They're having it on Thursdays. The only thing they'll be competing with are NBA games on TNT, and whenever the NFL comes back on Thursday nights. So they're starting off and debuting at a good time where the NFL is wrapping up, and there are no Thursday games. Because if they continue the Thursday game thing, the NFL that is next year, then that might hit them a little bit, and they might want to consider changing days specifically on NFL nights. So I expect them to have a pretty good growth here, and I think the attention that they're receiving on some of the bidding wars that they're having with the UFC, I think it's helping them.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to that is, tonight's kind of bad timing because you had the Lance Armstrong interview on Oprah channel, so I'm sure that's going to bring in, it's a sports topic, so I think a lot of males are going to just watch the interview, kind of forget Bellator's on. And I think also to your NFL point, I think a lot of those NFL games kind of suck, to be honest. I mean, it's not like there's marquee games on there. I mean, Monday Night Football, within the last couple of years on ESPN, them and Sunday Night Football get the marquee games. It seems like the Thursday night, they kind of get screwed. I mean, usually it's like, I don't know, the Lions and the Dolphins or something on Thursday Night Football. Sure, I know the NFL is super popular, but...
Yeah, but if there's one, and I think it's that popular, I mean, to where if there's one game on, I guess it doesn't matter who plays.
That's true.
I mean, everybody's got a fantasy player on a team, so...
That's a good point.
Definitely.
That's true. Let's move on. Let's talk about UFC on FX. Really, I think this event's been kind of overshadowed, even though the main event has huge implications in the middleweight division. Vitor Belfort versus Michael Bisping. It's been on the record, you know how Dana is. He says one thing and then stuff happens and something else happens. But if Bisping wins, it's easy. I think he's guaranteed a shot at Anderson Silva. Things got heated at the press conference. Both men had to be separated. Some pushing and shoving. You know how Bisping is. He pretty much went on like a 2-minute tirade, pretty much cursing out Vitor Belfort on an interview on BloodyElbow.com. In terms of this main event, could Bisping be a victim of what happened with him and Dan Henderson, where he just landed right into that massive H-bomb by Dan Henderson? Is there any kind of possibility that could happen with Vitor Belfort? Belfort does have the power. Is it possible that he could get KO'd by Belfort, or do you think this will be an easy win for Bisping here?
I don't know, man. It's going to be pretty damn. I expect this to be a pretty entertaining fight. It's possible for him to knock him out. I mean, the last time we actually saw Vitor Belfort stop anyone but punches was when he fought Akiyama, and that was a while back. Not necessarily a while back. It's about a year and a half ago. Can Bisping get knocked out? Yeah, we've seen him get knocked out. Actually, only one of his losses has been by knockout. He has an okay chin, but if this guy goes in amped, thinking about Anderson Silva, that's going to be my next fight, he's going to get done with. I mean, he's either going to tap out or get knocked out. He's got to remain composed, and I don't know if if Bisping has that within his character.
I think he does, especially with his kickboxing style. I think it's going to be kind of a boring fight where Bisping kind of uses his kickboxing distance. As long as he stays disciplined and composed, I think this is kind of an easy win. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a war. I think there's a possibility of this really being an awesome fight. But I just think Bisping, there's kind of too much on the line for him to be exciting. And I think for him, it's kind of like, if the fight's boring, I'm getting a title shot. Who cares what the fans think? And I think, especially the fights in Brazil, I think they're going to hate him anyway, whether he knocks out Vitor or wins a boring decision. Either way, the fans are still going to despise him. So I think Bisping, I like his chances in this fight. Any other fight on here that kind of catches your eye? You have Gabriel Gonzaga versus Ben Rothwell. CB Dollaway's on the card. A really kind of a mediocre card on FX at best. Anything really catches your eye?
No.
Yeah,
to be honest, it's the cards, like you said, it's a little less than mediocre. It's something just to get you pumped for next week. But unless there's a Fight of the Year candidate on here, there's probably a reason why this card's being overlooked, man. It's happening in Brazil. It's not happening in the United States, and it's being, it's being the precursor to what is a fight on network television between Demetrius Johnson and Albuquerque's John Dodson. So I think there's a reason why it's overlooked. And just I hate to here's let's throw a little information, the little stats from the sports books.
Sure.
Belfour's a slight favorite, very slight favorite.
Really?
Very close.
Wow.
Yep.
Interesting.
So
I don't
interesting
disagree with that.
Interesting that they have him. So
just think of this card compared to UFC on Fuel, which no one has Fuel. Anna's Vanderlei Silva versus Brian Stance, the main event. Mark Hunt versus Stefan Struve. Hector Lombard versus Yushin Okambi. Takanori Gomi versus Diego Sanchez. Dun Young Kim on the card. That card's loaded, and that's going to be from Japan. That's March 2nd. That kills this card, yet no one's going to see it. So just kind of unfortunate. But anyway, let's talk about another, really, I think, is the Spotlight Combat Sports Card Weekend. That's going to be on HBO Boxing. Main event, Orlando Salido versus Mikey Garcia, for Salido's WBO title. And I think kind of a soft spot. I think all three of us we agree upon this, has to be one of our favorite fighters. Gennady Golovkin taking on Gabriel Rosado, middleweight, 12 rounds for Golovkin's WBA title. Also, Rocky Martinez on the card. Really, this could be an outstanding card. Talk about Golovkin. He's entertaining. How far can he go in terms of being a fighter that can be a real standout pound-for-pound star?
I think he's 3 fights away from being the pound-for-pound number one.
Wow,
if he wins this fight, and I see no trouble with him and Gabriel Rosado's. I'm a big fan of Gabriel Rosado because he's earned this the hard way. He's actually a 154 pounder, moving up in weight. They offered him a catch weight. He said no. He says Henry Armstrong and all those fighters back in the day did not fight at catch weights. All fight at 160. So he's gained a lot of respect from people because of that. Also, Gennady Golovkin is his technical skill, his hands, the way his stance, it makes it impossible for you to knock him out or even hit him in the chin. This guy, I know we sound like we're treating this guy like a god, but just his abilities are incredible. And if he wins if he pulls off a victory here, and like I said, we see no trouble in it. He's a 20-1 favorite, man. 20 to freaking 1. Wow. Rosado is an 8-1 underdog. So this is how confident the sports books are that this guy will have no trouble with Rosado. But
same thing with Daniel Cormier. He was 20-1 favorite too.
And that's crazy. That might be the highest ever in MMA, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to Gennady Golovkin, this is what he's potentially set up for. Fights against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., fights against one of our favorite fighters from last year, Peter Quillen, a.k.a. Kid Chocolate, and Sergio Martinez. I think he beats all those guys. Peter Quillen, I think, would go the distance with him. I think Golovkin knocks Martinez out in less than 6 rounds.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about him, too. We know he's not going to fight Felix Sturm because he won't come over here. but other than that, Golovkin, he's just a real deal, man. The accolades are all legitimate. This guy, he just has all the skills. You know what I'm saying? He can box. And we've been covering this for a while, but what about his personality? The skills are definitely, they've already spoken for themselves, but in terms of this guy, putting butts in the seats in terms of being entertaining outside the ring, is that a possibility, or is it just that possible international disconnect for American fans?
I don't think he has it in him. His English isn't perfect, but even when he does speak in his native language, he doesn't seem like he has too much personality. So that's what's going to be very difficult. He's ultimately, I hate to say this, excuse a cliche, but let his hands do the talking for him. Because if you can knock people out, people are going to love you and are going to want to watch you. But
that's true. Yeah.
For him to be a worldwide phenomenon superstar, he doesn't have the personality for it. But as long as he just keeps getting knockouts and knocks the top guys out, the following will come and the money will come for him.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the main event. You mentioned it, Jorge, earlier on, Mikey Garcia, Orlando Salido. What do you guys see in Orlando Salido? Pretty impressive record, has a notable win, 2 actually notable wins over Juan Manuel Lopez. What can fans expect at Orlando Salido. And which fight do you think will be the more entertaining, Salido Garcia or Golovkin Rosado?
This one, Orlando Salido versus Mikey Garcia. It's that other one, the Golovkin Rosado, might end a little bit early, but this one has a chance for fireworks. It has a chance to be on the level of the Juan Manuel Lopez fight, I think. Very exciting fights both times. So I definitely think this one. Mikey's a slight favorite at 2-1, and Orlando Salido, despite being the champion, it's a slight underdog. He's not more than a 2-1 underdog, so it's very close. And they're fighting for the WBO featherweight title. So Mikey Garcia's first title fight, 30-0, 26 knockouts. I'm super excited for this fight, man.
Mm-hmm. I'm super excited for this fight as well. I think, and Salido's the type of guy, he also came up the hard way, and he is not going to just give his title to Mikey Garcia. And this is going to be one of to my opinion, Mikey Garcia, he like, of course, Robert Garcia, he comes from a fighting family, but we just haven't seen him in that war yet, and I think this is going to be that fight. But it's definitely got to be hard for him in terms of fighting Salido. He's a veteran, he's got crazy heart, and he's worked too hard for that title. And I don't think he's gonna. I don't know. It's really hard to call a winner against this. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go as far as age versus youth because Salido's not an old guy, but he's definitely a veteran compared to Garcia. And I'm just thinking in terms of how Garcia is going to win this fight, and then how much is it going to come into play in terms of the judging, being that Salido is the champion. So it's gonna make for a very interesting, entertaining fight, and I'm definitely looking forward to it.
And also, very quickly, Orlando Salido is one of the two people to technically beat Robert Guerrero. Robert Guerrero only has one loss on his record. The loss to Gamaliel Diaz, back in 2005 is the only legitimate one. But Orlando Salido did beat him by unanimous decision, but ultimately tested positive for steroids after that fight. So he has beaten and technically beaten a few talented guys if you want to think that far back. So Mikey Garcia isn't the technical fighter that Robert Garcia is. That Robert Guerrero is. I anticipate this being a good fight. I think someone's going to get dropped. Both guys might even hit the canvas a couple of times, but I think we can expect a war from this. Mikey Garcia being a Mexican-American fighter that goes in there to just brawl, and Orlando Salido just got that old man Mexican strength, man. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and definitely the people should tune into that one.
I want to quickly ask you, because there's another topic I want to ask you both about, but on the Ring Magazine website, on their rankings list on featherweight, since their champion's vacant, but yet Salido has the WBO title. Why is that?
For who was this? This was the Ring Magazine?
Yeah, this is Ring Magazine. Their rankings for featherweight, it says their champion's vacant. I'm just wondering, why isn't Salido? Do you know why they have it as vacant, even though he's the number one ranked fighter in that division?
It's possible that their last number one actually moved up in weight, but Ring Magazine, despite the fact that it has this, the nostalgia that deals with them, I don't think people should take their rankings or the belt too serious. There are only 4 belts: WBO, WBA, IBF, and WBC. Those are the 4 belts that people should be most concerned about. The Ring Magazine's more of a, hey, we're recognizing you because we're the oldest magazine and boxing magazine in the world. So it's, not to offend anyone. It's a damn good magazine. It promotes the sport, but they're the same sport that didn't have Austin Trout in their top 10 for a year and a half.
Wow, yeah, that's true. I want to ask you both. This wasn't on our rundown, but I want to address it to you anyway. If you watch daytime television, Jeff Probst, the host of Survivor, has a daytime talk show. And weirdly enough, he did a topic on MMA fighter Felice Herrig. She's a fighter in Bellator. I think she's fought at XFC. If you follow her Facebook page, she's pretty known for pretty much showing off her sexuality as well as her fighting ability. And I want to ask you both, as we see Ronda Rousey getting more popularity, certainly we talked about Holly Holm, do you think it's okay to sell sex and fighting ability at the same time? If Felice happens to go on a massive losing streak, do you think her putting pictures online, sexy pictures on her Facebook page and kind of playing up her sexuality, could that come back to haunt her? Could that be kind of like with Chael Sonnen, whenever he loses, people play up, he shouldn't be talking crap about people. But when he wins, it's served as a positive. What do you think about that whole situation?
Sure. I mean, I think about it this way. You see a lot of stars, you go out there, and model. Think of some of this. You brought up soccer earlier. How many times have we seen Cristiano Ronaldo and David Beckham out in their underwear or Speedos promoting some sort of underwear? Man, it's kind of like the same thing. Just because she's not getting paid for it, I mean, well, it's a little different, I guess. But if that's how she's going to attract this, I mean, as long as she's not like prostituting herself, man, I'm not offended by it. It's the way she's trying to get attention. If she's a good fighter, then by all means, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, it's an age-old argument, and of course, if she's winning fights, it looks all the better, But you got to use it. I mean, that's just the type of business that it is. Jorge made good points. I mean, it's just with all the other athletes, and they've modeled, they starred in movies. You got to strike while the iron's hot. There's somebody's always going to call it sexist, and somebody's always going to have a problem with it, but they got to take advantage. Like I said, I mean, in terms of, it's not going to be like a ring of prostitution or anything to that extreme. It's, that's the business. That's the entertainment. Sex sells, and so does good fights. So if you can have that winning combination, so be it.
Mm-hmm. 4 minutes left. I saw a tweet from Canelo Alvarez's official Twitter page saying, this is tweeting at Oscar De La Hoya, quote, Cinco de Mayo weekend in September 14th will be huge for boxing. Any update as to if Austin Trout does have this fight with Canelo or not? I've heard rumors that perhaps the winner, they're trying to set up, Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Canelo fighting on Cinco de Mayo and then having the fight in September. Any word of Austin Trout involved in that at all?
None
Okay.
at all. I mean, they haven't been contacted. I don't know what they're going to do. I have a feeling they're going to pull Alfredo Angulo out of nowhere, to be honest, Will. But that's why I definitely think it's going to be Mayweather. It hasn't been announced. Mayweather against Guerrero, and then Canelo against whoever they pick, whoever they handpick out of the 154-pound division. Again, Canelo does not have a mandatory opponent, so this guy can fight pretty much whoever he wants as long as they're ranked in the top 15. So it's kind of crazy, but that's how boxing works, and the fights that we want to happen, don't happen a lot of the time. But then we get fights like Alvarado Rios and Salido Garcia that turn out to be better fights than these big ones that we actually want. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we have 2 more minutes left. Real quickly, guys, anything you guys want to add before we call it a day? Call it a night, actually.
No, that's pretty much it, man. Again, Archie Ray Marquez heading out to Finland to fight Eddie Tatali. It's a huge fight for him, so definitely wishing him the best. We're still trying to see what Fidel Maldonado Jr. does here locally, who his next opponent is. But and again, don't forget February 1st, the Johnny Tapia boxing MMA hybrid event. We'll see how well that does, and despite the fact that here locally we have these two cultures, it seems like they just haven't intertwined too much. You don't see a lot of sparring with some of the better boxers and some of the better MMA guys here locally. So hopefully sooner or later these two communities can come hand in hand, and maybe this Johnny Tapia Presents event February 1st might be that bridge to gap the two cultures.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being there. I think me and you are going to head out there and cover that, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. That's going to wrap up our show. As always, you can get in touch with us through Twitter, through @TheLowBlow. That has all of our updates, links to articles to SouthwestFight.com, interesting links we see online concerning MMA and boxing, and a lot more. Also through Facebook, that has links to all of our shows, all of our YouTube videos, and plus the most interesting and compelling combat sports content on the internet. That's Facebook.com/Low Blow Podcast. And also we're available through the Stitcher Radio app and iTunes, and also the FightFans Radio, which we're hosted on. They're available through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Ustream, all using the hashtag FightFansRadio. That has our show along with the rest of the FightFans Radio Network family. So for myself, Justin Goodrum, Will McClary, and Jorge Hernandez, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
R.I.P. Strikeforce.